Welcome to part 20 of Ikko Ikki Abridged. Last time we were cautiously advancing against the Miyoshi, taking a couple of their castles. We also defeated several Aki armies in castle defences, so that side of the island's looking good. We got a decisive battle against the Miyoshi main force and won, and now we're in a good position to finish off Shikoku. Speaking of finishing things off, we had some guys under siege last time they sallied and died, and here's me auto-resolving my way into that castle, leaving the Aki with just 2 more castles. The next one along's pretty close, and I did do some Ashigaru scouting to see what was there. Unfortunately, it's got a pretty big garrison, so I couldn't swoop in and just easily auto-resolve them like I thought I might be able to. So nothing happened there for now. We've got this other issue going on the mainland. The Tokugawa have moved an army past my main defensive point at Himeji, so the next castle along is under threat, and we're not able to get in front of them basically. I could put all of my trash together and go for a field battle potentially, but I didn't try that, just ended up leaving the situation to see what they would do, and what they did was go on and attack the next castle along, so there we have it. The defense situation here isn't the best because the garrison's only small and they're attacking with good units, but a last stand is still helpful for us. This video is sponsored by me, and I say play Godless Tactics, the turn-based tactics and strategy game out now on Steam. You explore an exotic future scenario, pick your own path through an open world of strategic choices, and use a teamwork-focused tactical battle system to resolve your fights. It's good, and I know this because I made it myself. Link in the description. We're not going to do an enormous amount here just because we don't have that many troops. But we don't necessarily need troops to make something good of this. We can kill some of their armoured units with a few garrison Ashigaru fire arrows, and more importantly, the enemy's Ashigaru have to make these big climbs, and that will get us a fair few kills as well. But yes, things won't last long because once their katana samurai are inside, which they can be easily since we're not defending half the wall, the units we do have will die, like our militia garrison units. And I'm just kind of throwing everything in at this point because every kill counts, and all of our guys don't count, their deaths that is, because they are garrison units, the most discriminated against demographic in our nation. And as the last few guys gradually die here, we're still getting more and more kills because of the silent killers. Both our towers and these climbs are still killing enemies right up to the end of the fight, and that's pretty handy. It's easy to overlook just how much damage this does. You can see here in the results. We killed something like 500 enemies, but they lost 1,500 troops, so the towers and the climbs really thinned them out, and now they've lost more than half of their army in this battle, even though we didn't really do anything. So that's good news, going to make it easier to deal with that invasion from now on. You can see there's an Ashikaga shogunate monk spawning a rebellion nearby, and here is that rebellion. Annoyingly, the balance bar is even, so I didn't feel like auto-resolving this, especially because these units need to move out to fight the more powerful Tokugawa army right after this. So here's a little look at the siege defense. Not much to say here because we do actually have some big advantages. We have a bunch of reinforcement units coming in, and they will not only distract the enemy but will kill a couple of their units. Meanwhile, inside the castle, the slightly reduced numbers of enemies just can't make it in. We can block all of their lines of climb, and they're going to rout and die as they reach the top. Soon it's just units outside the castle to deal with, and I can pile into them with all of my reinforcements. We've got enough stuff to win here, even with lesser or equal quality units. So that's that, and there's the result. There was one big upside to that annoying battle though, and that is that we get a general afterwards. So now we have someone to lead these troops against the Tokugawa nearby and lead the defense in general. So that is nice, but now another rebellion. This time it's the Shimazu rebels that we saw last time. I've got this fully garrisoned castle, but annoyingly that balance bar just isn't good enough for me because we're still on the front line, and I was pretty sure we would lose virtually nothing in a manual resolve, so I wanted to get that no losses battle. I'm being held back at first by my gunners not wishing to gun. The enemy are right in front of them and are going to be pinned down by this Yari Ronin Yari wall. Some of the gunners further down the wall are firing, but the ones close to the enemy aren't. Maybe they somehow don't have line of sight. I'm pretty sure they do because those little barriers don't block line of sight as far as I know. But they're not firing, so that's a shame. They'll start firing eventually. The gunners tend to be like that. But broadly speaking, we can just stop the enemy as they come in and shoot them, perfect against all of the samurai they have. I want to get my blocking unit out of that battle once it takes like half casualties, because we certainly don't want to lose a unit here. It's kind of hard to get them out with the pathfinding of sieges to take into account as well, and the fact they're kind of stuck. But they do get out roughly half alive, and then the climb up towards the archers for everything else proves to be too much, and even units outside the walls are routing right now. Not sure why they're so willing to rout, maybe it's just because they have a disadvantage overall. But from here, blocking was not necessary basically. They climbed in and died, and that's what we like to see. As they were leaving, I accidentally shot some fire arrows into one of my own gates. But with the gate on fire, with the enemy queuing to get through the gate, we can actually pick up some kills, because the gate being destroyed kills everything that's kind of in and around it. So all the guys inside die, and people on the ramp outside die as well. So we get some free kills without having to pursue. Not that it matters at all in this case, because rebels tend to just get deleted after they lose a fight. And this is no exception. Down goes the Shimazu rebels, but there is hope for the Shimazu, as we'll see in a second. Right now it's time to move on up against the Miyoshi. I've got our two armies here pushing this next castle. We can just auto-resolve this because the castle is half garrisoned with dead units from previous battles, so it's less strong than it looks. And I can also take the next castle just after it as well, because there was not much here. So with that, the Miyoshi are suddenly kicked off the island in one fell swoop. And also here, we have the chance to make the Shimazu as a vassal, and I thought, well, I will do this. Not only to have one fewer place for me to have to manage the public order of, but because it's nice to have a major faction as one of your vassals, so you can lord it over them. So here we go, the new Shikoku Shimazu are back in action. From this corner, we do have a way to go to the west towards the Aki to help out with that, and I considered doing it, but I've got a ninja here and he quickly finds out there's really not much going on here. As expected, we've defeated like 4 of their armies so far, perhaps even 5 if you count auto-resolves, and that's all looking good, so we can finish that off without help. With the Tokugawa thing, this proved to be pretty easy as well actually, because once I got everything together and just auto-resolved the castle, that balance bar's pretty good. So that last stand we just did, killing half the enemy, means we don't have to worry about them after that, and all in all, we only lost garrison units to defeat their invasion, and that's pretty good. Guess we lost some tax income as well for a turn in that castle, but that's certainly worth it. And the final thing I did in this turn is to go after the Aki. There's still some stuff in this castle, but I was able to muster up a bunch of other stuff of my own by bringing over units that were garrisoning castles to the north of this location. So we end up getting an auto-resolvable fight and we take that castle. And then, in the same turn, we can go on and take the other castle just next to it as well. So with this, the Aki are going to be kicked out of the game. This army's damaged, but because it's got through all those battles, there's not going to be another battle here. And we've got plenty of time to replenish. That's looking good. It seems Shikoku has very suddenly fallen to us. We still need to take Awaji Island, the place to the east of it, but we're pretty much done here. Here is Awaji Island, in fact, with me setting up to go across. The land crossing, quote unquote, the thing where it lets you walk across the sea, is a bit pernickety, but eventually it will get some troops across there. Thinking more long term, we're going to need to take a lot of the troops on Shikoku Island off of it. And the main issue there is public order. We've got lots of public order issues there, obviously. And I do have this package set up, 3 monks and some trash, ready to be delivered. They've actually been waiting in that port for a while, and a couple of the other ports nearby, because the enemy have always had ships around blockading the place. I've actually put some ships of my own together, thinking I might be able to get a navy and actually contest some of these enemy navies to make a crossing successfully. But so far, nothing like that has happened. Anyway, with the Tokugawa front, since we just took down their army, I thought we could counterattack and take their castle here. There is a half stack inside, so it's heavily garrisoned, but besieging it will at least stop them from recruiting. What I wondered is whether any armies nearby would come and support, because if they don't, we can at least siege the enemy out. In the ever-annoying Ashikaga Shogunate turn, we see another rebellion spring up, and we also do see armies moving towards my new siege of the Tokugawa, so maybe they're thinking of doing something there. But we do have to fight this rebellion here, and this is troublesome by the looks of things. The rebellion's not that big, but the castle garrison here is also not that big, so the balance bar is nasty. However, we can immediately start pulling some tricks to make this a bit better. we have a cav unit. So they can go right out and try to play fishing, really, just see how many enemy units we can get to be interested in the cav and not attack the walls. I eventually got 4 spear units to chase them, and that's pretty good. That's like half of their total melee force now not attacking the castle, meaning that balance bar is less of a big deal. So in they come to attack. Let's see how it goes. They've got some archers who are going to duel with my archers up on the walls. They've got the numbers, but we've got the position, and I can also spam fire arrows now and again as well to possibly get a few more kills. Elsewhere, it's just going to be a grind. Our garrison units will fight theirs. Ours are for the most part worse, but we do have some katana retainers and bow retainers. This castle, though, has a massive weakness. The 2 towers overlooking most of our stuff can be captured from the outside, so the advancing enemy turns the internal towers against us, and we're immediately losing many samurai here. Actually, we lose a bunch of these critical retainers right off the bat. Need to move them away from the towers so they don't get targeted, but that's pretty nasty. Outside, I lost one of my fishing units. Unfortunately, I've only now got 3 units distracted. But I did actually make some use of the cav. I realised I might as well come and take out this archer unit. That frees up my archers to go stand in front of the capture point, because I realised the enemy could use their numbers to just go for a capture. Luckily they are fighting us. These fights aren't going to be good. They are technically better than us. They have more troops and the towers are on their side. So that's nasty. It's only my katana retainers who are going to trade really well and make up for everything else dying. I did actually try to use fire arrows on the towers to get rid of them, but it's nowhere near enough to actually destroy them. Here we are a bit later. My retainers are doing well. We've taken out quite a few enemy Ashigaru, and my militia are doing okay as well by virtue of the fact they can't rout. They are grinding the enemy down. And inside it looks like we're kind of winning. We've taken out enough stuff to rout enemy units, so while we've lost virtually everything in the process, we are holding on. Here some bow retainers have been cut down to the last man as they won their melee, and then they are cut down even further by the enemy towers. So yes, the priority to holding on now is to take those towers. One enemy unit is currently attacking. That's the one unit that stopped chasing my cav, meaning it's just a one-on-one here between those spears and my katanas. I immediately recap the tower. That's why I'm out here, basically, to stop myself getting killed quite so much. We can't actually maintain hold of the tower because we're going to be fighting on the capture point, so it keeps going neutral. But luckily enough, our katana retainers are strong enough to beat that unit of Ashikaru away, so then we take the tower. I've sent men to capture the other one as well. So now our troops aren't going to be gradually killed, all like 40 of them that are still alive. And no enemy units are attacking the castle anymore. We have routed everything away, simply because of that fishing trip that our cav went on. There are 3 whole units out there, just doing nothing. They could easily take us down now at this point. We're just overwhelming our very small numbers, or going for the capture point. But we're still fishing, and now it's time for you to be very thankful I'm not a streamer or something. Because this is what I did. I just kept them chasing my cav up and down the map until the battle ended. Good stuff, good memes, and not a particularly good time as the player, but I guess I really wanted to hold this castle. I mean, I probably could have just taken it right back if we lost it, but I decided at some point I was going to hold on to it. So we did, thanks to a good old-fashioned exploit win. Winter falls, and that gives me reason to not necessarily maintain my siege of the Tokugawa. And here are some more reasons. There are quite a lot of Ashikaga Shogunate things here, and this smaller stack just moved here, suggesting it's going to move on further towards us. Their good army is still garrisoned where they left it ages and ages ago, which is great. Thanks to the Shogunate for not killing us with that army, really. Decided to try and use this geisha to kill an enemy general, and that didn't work, so that's the end of that. But yes, I come back to this siege and decide to cancel it. The other option would be to just auto-resolve it now. That balance bar's certainly winnable, but this location isn't very defensible, so it's just better to stay at Himeji like I always did before. And that's what we'll do. Meanwhile, over on, quite nearby actually, Awaji Island, we do manage to get some guys across the crossing and get this auto-resolve. Nice and easy, taking down the Miyoshi. That's another enemy out of there. And strategically, we're now looking good. We can start deploying these armies to our front lines. We're no longer dealing with a quagmire situation. There was a Nanban port here, I instinctively destroyed it because we don't want Christianity to spread, but then I had second thoughts. I was like, wait a minute, we could actually use the Nanban ships. We're already able to hire one of the ships, and with a bit of tech we can get more. And that might actually deal with this whole naval trouble situation. If we can put out a fleet that's really expensive but really good and just go blow up a whole bunch of enemy ships, things would get easier for us. So for that reason I'm going to keep the Nanban port. And some other good naval news is that a crossing became available for my delivery of trash. So these 3 boats can bring 3 monks and a bunch of militia units over. The only reason I needed to bring them over is because we're at the unit cap, so I can't make more militia over here. I need to use ones that are no longer needed on Kyushu, and the same deal with the monks really. For some reason with the monks you can't do the thing where if you land at a port you keep your movement points. So all the monks will just sit right here for this turn, but soon I'll have them deployed and public order will be less of an issue on that island, helping me in the background. Now the Ashikaga Shogunate do the thing I feared the most. Well, not making that rebellion just there. They take their good army and they use it again. So it's only the second time they've decided to use it. But the first time they absolutely annihilated us. So I was dreading the second time. No idea why it took so long, but very grateful for that. Here we go then at Osaka Castle. We've got a decent castle full of troops, but the enemy troops are just straight up good, and many of them are going to be nearly arrow-proof, which makes our castle defences less useful. However, Osaka Castle is of course the land of exploits, so at least some enemy units won't be able to attack us because of that. I had some cav and I wanted to do the same thing we saw earlier, drawing enemy units away. I accidentally ran out in front of these gunners, not realising they were in the nearby trees. We got lucky though, because it seems these veteran Teppo gunners have the whistling arrows ability. So they didn't shoot my cav, they shot a volley of whistling arrows at us, shooting them out of their guns. Meaning I now have the whistling arrows debuff, but actually we're fine. So got away with that, might have lost a whole bunch of guys if they actually shot. The bulk of the enemy's units will be attacking from the north across the Bridge of Death, where the rebels usually come across, and I'm set up in the usual fashion with my men standing just out of range of the exterior tower there, so when the enemy capture it we don't lose all of our katana retainers, and now we wait for them to attack. Meanwhile they are attacking from the south, but we have our magic castle effect. Disney will have to go find a new mascot because Osaka Castle is the true land of magic. The enemy stand under the towers and die. So that's the southern front shored up really. Back to the north, here we go. It's just going to be a massive onslaught of units. Some of them are bad, they do have some Ashigari units in there, and some of them are very good. The veteran samurai will not only beat my samurai, but can just shrug off the arrows, climb in and beat all of my archers and stuff as well. Curiously, they actually have a few Ikko Ikki units on their side if you look closely. They might have bribed them from that other Ikko Ikki faction, or maybe even me. I don't remember them bribing units away from me, but they might have done. So we're not going to defend the bridge too heavily. I've actually got most of my men back here at the second layer of defense. So we're going to do some defense in-depth strategy here. First, the enemy attack this first bit and just lose their momentum, lose all their stamina and lose a few men. And then we'll fall back for the main battle to be held near the bigger wall. Here you can see the gunners are getting out of there pretty early. We don't want them to be stuck in melee. They need to do lots of shooting later. I did leave behind the Onobushi, so a unit of Onobushi will fight enemy stuff here to delay them. The gunners and archers get out of there and fall back behind our next layer of defense. We've got 2 units of garrison militia. These ninjas attacking them are cut down by archers, so that goes okay. My plan to distract the enemy with my cav doesn't work in the end, simply because the enemy have cav, so eventually their better cav will chase after me. They've got stamina, they'll catch up, and unfortunately my cav will go down, so that plan is over. But now the main battle plan can commence. Here they are, attacking these sacrificeable garrison units, and now not only will we have stuff on the high wall behind them, but the archers and gunners can set up on this lower wall nearby to also shoot into that situation. And I've got extra archers behind the wall shooting up and over, nice and unpowerful and inaccurate. But that's still going to bag us some more kills. It'll probably kill many of our own side as well, but they are there to be killed. Just want the enemy to stand still for a bit as this swarm moves on through. They've taken decent damage so far, that's for sure. And as for the southern attack, well, it's going great. We've lost 0 troops. The enemy are losing troops fast because even the veteran and hero units which have high armor stats still die when the towers shoot them, so we are going to be cutting through tons of extremely powerful units, and that's going to be critical for us. Another thing that helped us out here was the enemy didn't make the climb up into the middle of the castle. That long climb would put them up in combat with my guns and archers and stop me from doing this plan really. But luckily they weren't paying too much attention, so the guns keep shooting. They were focused on attacking my bow and gun retainers on this smaller section. That's great because while they climb up there, they're going to get shot by my archers and guns further up. And that fight is taking place below a tower, and we've seen already in this video that towers will silently get loads of kills while you aren't really looking, especially against high armor units as I just said. So that's perfect for us, and looking around there are bodies everywhere and no real serious attempts to go and stop my gunners from just shooting into their flank and back and picking up absolutely loads of kills. That is all good. As for these two garrison samurai units, they are now just going to be sacrificed. I can slap them on Banzai and hold firm mode. That will boost their stats and stop them from routing, meaning they'll pick up plenty of kills, especially because the enemy will likely be on exhausted stamina as they fight, so the enemy won't have that much melee attack left. Some of their troops finally did start climbing into the interior of the castle. Fortunately, they mainly climbed up where I had bow garrison and not where I had my gunners, so the gunners are still going. Some of them have also climbed into the interior over here. They cut through some Yari Eshigaru. However, I have loads of Yari Eshigaru. I've got like 4 units and they're all quite veteran from killing rebels in the past. I'm manoeuvring them to make sure I've got tons of guys standing on that tower capture point because I really felt it was critical to keep that tower firing. It's kind of hard to tell whether it's doing a lot of damage, but I had a feeling it was, given how dead the enemy seemed to be at this point in the battle. We haven't really resisted them with anything particularly good, and they are dying. Back at the south, an attack actually does happen. Somebody fires a gun in our general direction. These gunners set up nearby, deciding not to stand under a tower. But they are actually gradually getting shot by a tower that they're just on the edge of the range of, so they're not really doing much. Meanwhile, the guys that have climbed in near the middle of the castle are now in trouble because I'm just spamming them. All of our units will be worse than theirs, but they can rout and they have taken a lot of damage to army losses, so they're going to have morale shocks pretty easy. We've lost all of our sacrificial units, but looking around, this castle is covered in bodies and we didn't have that many men, so most of them must be the enemies. That's the logic. We have been cutting them down. This officer tried to get in and got cut down as well, so that's looking good. And the balance bar is looking good as well. We're actually doing this. Our little exploit shield to the south finally breaks a bit when this unit of Yari heroes decides to just charge through and actually attack the castle properly, so that's bad news. At least they're still climbing underneath a big tower, and that tower cuts them down basically. They tried to fight some of my archers and died in the process. The towers are going to be super strong against hero units because they have small unit sizes, and they were right in front of the tower so it couldn't miss as well. That went pretty well. Unfortunately, I actually missed it while filming the replay, but basically they died. And then we've won the battle really. They've still got units around the place, but they're not doing very much. Like this general who's just standing somewhere being shot by a distant tower. The guy to his left gets cut down, then the guy to his right gets cut down. And I think he starts to suspect that the battle might not be going very well, and he decides to walk off. Now just a couple of other units to deal with, including 2 more generals, one of whom I believe is actually the Shogun, who was just kind of glitched out in front of a wall. So I sent a bunch of guys to shoot fire arrows at them. Soon the Shogun himself is routing away. He's at the back of this line here, the guy without the arrow shield. Not that those shields seem to work, the rest of his men go down to a barrage of arrows. Then he goes over here to this suspicious point. There are some other guys standing at the end of this little gallery. It seems they're trying to get into cover or something, but it doesn't work very well. The Shogun himself is still being hit by these arrows. However, he is also the king of the armor save. The arrows are just flying right through him for the most part. His horse too, I guess, is particularly gifted. So this goes on for a while, and after about 30 seconds of absolutely pounding him with arrows, he does actually die, so it's possible to kill him, he's not invincible. This leaves just a few other guys standing in the suspicious position, and there's some suspicious stuff going on here, you can see. They're kind of shuffling to their right, slowly but surely, and soon they get sucked into the underworld at a specific point. So it's all going well, some new exploits have been discovered, well, not exploits, some new weird glitches to do with this map have been discovered. The cycle goes on and more people kind of pop up from the underworld. I think it's quite a fun ride on the way down, so people come back to do it again or something. Some guy just shot in from somewhere. Something's going on over there. Meanwhile, outside the castle, they have a couple of units standing where they took out my cav earlier. The cav's dead bodies, interestingly, still give off the morale aura by the looks of things that inspires your troops. Perhaps the enemies were just standing there to enjoy that, but eventually, by moving around outside the castle, I tempt them to come inside. Once they're in, they don't really do anything particularly good, as you can see there. That leads us to this result. Our garrison's in bad condition, but the real units portion is still alive, so we'll be straight back after this. We're actually fine, and their army has been completely destroyed, with the vast majority of the kills appearing to be coming from towers. It was even more than I thought. We actually didn't do that much to them ourselves, they just died due to the castle's pure exploit potential. Absolutely fantastic. I suppose that's the end of them, and I think realistically we've won the campaign. We're in a much stronger position than we were at the start of Realm Divide, and that Ashikaga Shogunate army was their last chance to do something about us, really. Now that it's gone, we can start steamrolling. So what I think I'll do is move towards capturing Kyoto as the final point of this campaign. Looks like we'll be starting next time with this battle, the Adikiyama, coming at us with 2 stacks, but most of their assaulting units are militia, so they're not going to do very much in a castle attack, meaning this one's probably going to be easier than it looks, and it looks pretty easy. So we'll see next time.